The community was growing. A huge boom in construction would lead to Albuquerque's modern skyline. New housing developments broke ground on the west side and what would become Taylor Ranch in Rio Rancho. And computers were getting their start. Bill Gates and Paul Allen developed the software company Microsoft in Albuquerque in 1975. Still, much of the social disorder from the previous decade was spilling over into the 70s.
When Nixon sent troops into Cambodia,
Anti-war demonstrations erupted across the country.
Young people didn't want to be drafted. They didn't want to go fight in a war where tens of thousands of Americans were dying, and they didn't think the war was justified.
Many of the protests against the war in Vietnam were happening on college campuses, some turning violent. That's what happened at the University of New Mexico in 1970. Former KOAT reporter Jim Baca covered the chaos.
One day we got gassed pretty bad by the National Guard. And so we ran into the journalism building to wash our eyes out, ran back outside.
Meanwhile, Dick Kniffing found himself in the center of the action.
I went to the university in the mornings, and I'm in the class one morning, and the campus was in turmoil.
The violence impacting another local journalist.
The reporter got bayoneted by National Guard members from down in Hobbs who they brought up here. It was really scary, and it was very upsetting to see the country being torn apart by that war.
President Nixon also at the center of one of the most notable events in the 70s.
I had no prior knowledge of the Watergate break-in.
Was Nixon and Watergate and politics and all that? It was there was a much more intense interest in that then.
I did the news the night of what was called the Saturday Night Massacre, when President Nixon fired a bunch of his legal help at the Attorney General's office and everything because they were going to pursue charges against him.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
The biggest story in the country also had ties to New Mexico.
I got to go to Washington, D.C. to cover the Watergate hearings because U.S. Senator Joseph Montoya was one of the members of the Watergate Committee.
The president's pledge for a more intense follow-up on Watergate was not as good a performance as his checker speech in 1952.
And we thought that having somebody from New Mexico participate was important. Historically and politically.
Realizing the importance of stories like Watergate, KOAT developed a new team.
The thrust that Channel 7 took in those years, and that really helped to build our news reputation, to build our base, and to gave us a competitive edge, we were much more into politics, and we covered elections really well.
I was probably the first assigned TV reporter to cover the state legislature.
Now that you've had a chance to see what the legislature did do for public school finance, what is the situation in the schools across the state?
And we would shoot film of happenings at the state capitol, and then we would drive halfway to Albuquerque. I'd bring the film down that far, and some car would come up from Albuquerque from the newsroom, and the film would be on its way to the lab and to be processed and to get on the air that night.
Crime in Albuquerque also very much a problem during this time.
One of the interesting things is that the crime rate in Albuquerque has always been very high. In fact, back when I was a reporter, it was higher than it is now, believe it or not. And that's because of the drug trade.
Receiving a lot of attention because of their influence on young people.
Well, the drug use in this country in the last 8 years really has come about partly because of the lifestyle of dress and beads and the Beatles and their songs.
At a time crime fighting was needed, police in Albuquerque were demanding higher pay.
The police strike was a big deal because imagine officers actually striking. So they were on strike. They were on the picket lines versus being out on the patrol and helping citizens.
After 10 days, a deal was reached, laying the groundwork for better communication between the city and police.
On Your Behalf presents Crime Stoppers.
In 1976, an influential crime-fighting tool got its start at KOAT.
A gas station attendant, a young fellow by the name of Michael Carmen, he was killed in an armed robbery.
Get down! A detective asked the station to produce reenactments of crime, hoping it would lead to tips so they could make arrests.
The young victim is taken to a dirt road in the South Valley.
It worked. A phone call came in that helped solve the murder. Now Crime Stoppers is an international organization.